social responsibility. Maybe the reason why we attack this is Harold's mentioned leaving a legacy. Like we're not satisfied with status quo, and also the new generation of chefs is not satisfied with status quo. I think a lot of the restaurants that we all have and are involved with are now talking about how can we be better, how can we optimize, how can we do society a favor, instead of how can we reach a star, 2-star, 4 stars, 7 stars, or whatever the conversation was 10, 15 years ago. Second, it's also leading the way, serving our community. Rodrigo mentioned, which I think is very beautiful thought, the connection between farm and mouth, because some have very fancy restaurants, and some have very casual restaurants, and they all hold a place because we all need to eat and we all need to survive. And I think it's what we found out, at least in this group of people, is that we just, if we know that this is what we want, then we lead the way, and then the political decision will come afterwards. Hopefully we will push forward for that. Also digitalization, sharing knowledge, and just being better at being colleagues and being smarter. Before, back in the day, it was very much about hiding the recipe and hiding all your good business ideas and getting it all for yourself. And I think that approach has really changed, not just during COVID, but in general. With the new generation of chefs, we're much more keen to share our good ideas and our business models, and be an inspiration instead of hiding. And as Andy said from Switzerland, just fucking do, don't wait till somebody knocks on your door and asks if you want to be sustainable or green. Just do it.
Love that. 2 minutes and 5 seconds. Amazing, Camila. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Very Danish. Very good.
Let's be Danish.
Very Danish. So we are 3, industry versus craftsmanship, the role of the industry. Isaskum, Survito.
Hi, how are you? Actually, we need a couple of hours more just to reach a perfect agreement, but I think we already have some exciting ideas on that topic. Probably shout out if I'm not doing it right, okay, my team. One of them was that we think the restaurants should be the voice to educate consumers. We should open a dialogue with them on terms, on concepts like sustainability, including educating them and educating our staff. So restaurants should be that voice. We are very close to the consumers. We are much closer than other agents in like industry or craftsmanship. So it's part of our responsibility, being the voice to educate them and being the voice to have a dialogue with them. The second, probably, and these are my words, we should make bold decisions on sourcing. Restaurants might, it depends on who, but restaurants might or should be more independent on big ingredients or big industries, and should be closer on local food, should have seasonal choices, and should be local engaged and have more transparency in sourcing. We should ask our suppliers what is behind the food. We should be bolder. And the third one is that, well, there's no planet B, as we know. We are all together in that, and everybody can have a specific role. And we were speaking about different roles, including industry. Industry might help us in lobbying, in changing laws, in financing, or supporting some small producers as well. So we will try to make something together or all together from different points of the coin. Of course, we need a couple of hours more in order to all have 100% agreement on that.
Exactly 2 minutes. Next.
I am Spanish, but I'm good as well.
Basque. That's the Basque spirit. BR4, sorry, responsible consumption, planetary health, and sustainable choices. Alexandra Schroeder. Sorry if I am mispronouncing your name.
Yeah, I'm Alejandra. I'm Venezuelan and I'm not good with time, so I'm going to put a timer for myself. So when it comes to responsible consumption, our amazing group of people talked about 3 main elements that fall under that responsibility: sustainability, livelihoods, and health. And so 3 of many, it's hard for me to really pick, of the topics that we talked about is the creation of a system of transparency as a way to increase accountability on behalf of the restaurants and the chefs, from how food is being, not just ingredients, how we're sourcing our ingredients, but also from anywhere from the wine to the paper to the containers, and all the stuff that we buy and acquire at the restaurant, to the operations, as well as to biodiversity, etc. This is coming from a suggestion of like, how can we create that dynamic menus that the consumer can select based on their interest, what to acquire. Regenerative agriculture, etc. Another interesting point that we talked about was responsible consumption as a way to increase livelihoods, support local food chains, increase visibility of local farmers, small producers, artisans, so that we can enhance their operations. Picking up the farmer and bringing them home with us. It's something else that was talked about as a way to support local economies. And then another very interesting point was decolonizing our plates. How do we bring back ancestral ingredients, ancestral plates as a way to, there we go, as a way to increase biodiversity. My time is up.
Thank you. We're going to human rights. London restaurant, Sara.
Very good. I'm Italian, so please forgive me. I tell you right now. So first of all, we don't want to talk about human rights, but we want to talk about dignity. And I like the topic of dignity instead of just rights. We have been understanding that this pandemic has been really highlighting what was invisible until yesterday, making visible the invisible, and really highlighting also who's doing good, and also understanding that it's not easy at all to do good in food. We have been highlighting 3 main actions. The first one, you have been mentioning this, education. We want to start from education. We need to start from education, both in schools, to let kids and next generation understand what's the role of food, highlighting the connection and the fact that food is the nexus of the society, because we can talk about food, teaching history, geography, science, social science, letting them understand that behind the roles of all the players within the society, food, feeders, farmers plays a crucial role and have been playing a crucial role to shape the entire society. So we strongly believe that education is one of the starting points, but not only in schools, thinking about long-term strategies. You have been mentioning restaurants, and I like what Bartolomeo was saying. It's not just communication. Educating consumers is more than just communication. We have to educate showing best practices and demonstrating what is good. Second, traceability, digitalization. We need to give tools to the food industries and farmers to show what is good and what is happening behind the scenes, and accelerate and nudge digitalization in food. Third, government regulation. We need subsidies for all the players in the food system, and we need to empower all the players of the food systems, because yes, maybe some chefs have been understanding what's their role, but not enough. We need really all the feeders and farmers understand that they are a crucial element within the society, taking care of the health of people and the health of the planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sara. Sara, now we're going to, let me see, ethics. No, we are 6, sorry. Reward systems, Howie.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for participating today. We talked about lists and rewards, two systems and categories that are both perpetual and pervasive in culture and incredibly influential in terms of people learning about global gastronomy. We mainly focused on figuring out ways to use that power for good. Our first takeaway was to act with greater responsibility and accountability that matches the moment in which we live, which includes things like transparency, includes debate, letting people really see the process behind how lists are made and rewards are given. The second conclusion we reached is there needs to be an openness to new stakeholders, which could mean who gives and gets the rewards and who appears on lists. So that might mean new categories from existing bodies that give out this kind of praise, or a totally new system like a World Gastronomy Prize, perhaps, a social gastronomy prize. We also talked about, and this is huge, a greater focus on inclusivity and diversity, because there's nothing in the global food system or the restaurant world that suggests that restaurant culture is a monolith, and how to reward and recognize all parties involved in a more focused and more accurate way.
Thank you, Howie.
Wow.
Very, very, very specific. DR7, we're going to do ethics and versus aesthetics. Eva, please.
Yeah. So we primarily talked about, one, thank you to my team for a wonderful conversation, this opportunity. We talked about wasted food in the restaurant supply chain primarily on the prevention side. And since I'm a consultant and a professional facilitator, I'll move fast. We had 3 outcomes that we came to in our conversation. The need for culture and education, not just for the consumer, but for employees, and not just for the chef, but every single line chef, every single person who's in the kitchen, bussers, every single person who touches food must have the understanding of why reducing food waste is a critical part of their operations, and they need to have that culture ingrained very early. 2, track and optimize. Money, 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 money. We need to make sure that we are not talking just about wasting food. We're talking about throwing dollars in the trash. We need to make sure that we're tracking and monitoring the waste, why waste is happening in the kitchen, and optimizing the movement of food through that process to make sure that there are smarter decisions being made about flexible menus, about ensuring first in, first out in the restaurant, and people really understanding that we need to preserve the dollars if it's not compelling enough to think about the wasted food component. And then third is partnerships, partnerships with suppliers. So not only educating consumers and employees, but engaging with suppliers to make sure that there is a reduction in wasted food before it even comes into the restaurant. And then partnerships with food recovery organization, churches, Too Good To Go style apps, so that if food is unfortunately unable to be consumed within the restaurant, how are you getting it to people beyond the doors of the restaurants? And then third, within this is government policy. How can there be enabling environment from policymakers to help support initiatives around this, primarily in recycling? We talked about many, many other things, but I'll pause there as our 3 outcomes from the wasted food side.
Thank you. Pretty clear and precise. We're going to data-driven decisions. James, please.
Thank you, Michelangelo. Yeah, we had a fantastic time. I think it's fair to say that we didn't have enough time. We were being right to the last second, but we were looking at a vision for how technology is changing the restaurant for the future, and also how we can close the widening gap between smaller, more owner-operated venues and the professionalized restaurant groups, which we think is a growing challenge. The 3 things that we came up with were, the first was a growing omni-channel opportunity. So we think there'll be much further growth of this omni-channel, multiple different routes to market for food, rather than it being within the 4 walls of a bricks and mortar restaurant. We think that the start of it's happened, but we're going to see that move through. And I think we're going to see some of the learnings that have been developed within the dark kitchen space move into mainstream over the next period. We think that the reality is that the bigger restaurant groups will still be driving the innovation, and that actually in terms of customer technologies, that ultimately we will end up in a position where, whether we like it or not, some of the big restaurant customer technology businesses that we know all around the world that have fundamentally grown on the last mile delivery will end up taking ownership of some bricks and mortar, and also probably service delivery that will allow ultimately the whole of the teams in the restaurants to focus on delivering great food and drink and concentrate on the cooking and experience rather than the technology and data. We think second is invisible technology. So we think there's going to be a much greater focus on back of house and supportive technology, particularly within the traditional and mainstream restaurant space and the smaller restaurants, not just customer technology. I mean, I think the view is that we understand that there's a divergence between food for fuel and food for experience, and that on the food for fuel side, you're going to see more pop-ups of kiosks and all of that stuff. But on the food for experience, the reality is we're going to see technology continue to be used for optimizing operations, driving efficiency, reducing food waste, and helping business owners to be more successful. The whole Internet of Things and sensors will probably take a big playing part in that. And our third one is creating a better culture of collaboration between technology providers and industry to promote open integrations, user-centered design, driving industry engagement, and reducing these anti-competitive processes that really block innovation, because you've got massive players who own and dictate the restaurant technology space from the EPOS out. We also hope that we'll be able to drive capital support and grants from government for micro and small businesses to implement software. That's our three.
Last two rooms, Michelangelo.
Yes. Leading people, Anais.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we had a really interesting and cool conversation in our room. I really want to thank the guys that work with me. It was so cool. First of all, I would like to start with, we had two incredible definitions to start with. First of all, we define talent as celebrating diversity. But for me, it's also inspiring a definition. And also we defined leadership as adaptability. But adapting to change without thinking is like a natural way of being, natural mindset towards being like flowing like water when a change comes. So this is what a really interesting definition. We've talked about four main topics. We were talking about leadership. So we talk about skills and the role that education has towards developing those skills. We didn't talk only about soft skills. We also talked about skills related to a strategic mindset, like thinking like longer than the short term. That is one thing that our industry has to start thinking about. And also about skills related to data and technology. And this was the second big issue we were talking about, technology and how this will affect leadership and talent. And we were really worried about redefining the interaction with technology. We were worried because somehow we think that maybe the technology, as we know nowadays, is limiting and constrains creativity, innovation, and so on our talent. And maybe we have to redefine how we do interpret it, and technology has to evolve also, okay? The third point that we have talking about is ownership. Maybe you have to also redefine what we believe that ownership is, and make each of our workers feel owner of our enterprise, also our restaurant, and make her believe that she can create, she can interpret, she can propose, she can change, or he could change anything. So ownership is what was a really big issue we were talking about too. And the last thing we were talking about was purpose. We think that we have to start managing from the why instead of from the how. And that's the way that we can bring everybody into the same page, and we can start developing strategies towards sustainability, social, environmental, and economic also. That was all. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Anais. Last but not least, the numbers. Pedro Silveira, your word.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, principally, the group that we worked together. It was a great group, great ideas, a lot of different opinions and similar opinions, but we had to conclude a few things. And we believe that we need somehow to spread the word through a platform of education or some other platform, using this huge chain of that we have here to spread the word with ambassadors and so on, but most importantly, with a strong content of financial education. We need to make every entrepreneur, from the small entrepreneur, that's the huge majority of our business, right, to the big entrepreneurs that already are on that page, but the small entrepreneurs need to get the financial education. Financial education is key for every restaurant to survive and every restaurant to thrive, and for every entrepreneur to employ more people, make more money, open new business, which you're going to employ more people. That's key. We need to spread the word. We need to find a way to create this content, and through financial education, make these people aware of how important this is. It's more important than the food they're serving. Of course, it's a huge part of it, and the experience that they're building. But with all the rest being great, without a financial education, they're going to have more problems. This crisis came to show us that. And the second topic that we discussed, and we don't have an answer to that, is how we're going to change the willingness of these entrepreneurs to have that, because it's a cost. You know, they have to have someone with a financial education inside their groups, and we have to make them believe that this is something that they need to do immediately. They need to look at the cost, they need to look at the pricing, they need to look at the situation they are financially before they do anything else. Business planning is key for their success and for what they need to do. We need to make them be willing to take that step. That's the point number 2. And point number 3, it's something that Michael brought, and we have to discuss further that, but how we make investors and banks and all this chain that has the big liquidity and the big money to look closer, you know, to the small chains, to small restaurants and small entrepreneurs. We don't have an answer to that, but that's something that we should think further. And these are the 3 topics that we discussed. It was great discussion. Thanks, everyone. And I hope we helped you guys a little bit, and let's keep this up.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, everybody. We are a little, late, just 6 minutes. Nikki, I would just 1 minute on like a couple of thoughts about this. Essentially, what I perceive in all of the BRs is like we're talking about, a couple of similar points. Very difficult to summarize everything. Education is everywhere. Education is the most important thing clearly here. Everywhere, and that's pretty nice. So how to tackle that? But there's a couple of 3 things that I also perceive. We need to build, foster, and promote deeper collaborative ecosystems. We need to find in order to find solutions, we need to think cross-sector. You see, we need to have some level of transdisciplinarity approach. It's clear for me that when I see everybody talking that we need to connect and collaborate. Number 2, ethical values as a source of competitive advantage. In order to be business, efficient, as a business, I think ethical value is so important here. We talk about that in all BRs to make better decisions. And the last one, to find business efficiency, I will try to redefine what is efficiency to the future for the next generations. Efficiency is not only financial. Efficiency is also ecological, environmental, people, community. Trying to tackle the triple bottom line, people, profit planning is really, really important. So collaborative ecosystem, open innovation, ethical values, and a much more holistic view of what is efficiency in order to build better business model. That's my intake, kind of like a summary of everything. From my side, I don't have anything else to say. That thank you very much for the time and the energy that you all place today. And Nikki, back to you.
All right, I think that is, I hope everyone can hear me. My internet on top of everything has been a disaster. But,
yeah.
Okay. Great. No, Michelangelo, great summary. We're gonna as well continue with a report afterward. You're gonna get next steps. And for those that have not been part of SGM yet, welcome to the family. I think this is exactly the space that we're trying to provide to start to provoke, to talk, to co-create. So it's really about connecting, collaborating, creating those partnerships together. And I really hope that somewhere a little group can emerge from this, becoming a working group that can actually work on an innovative model for restaurants to implement around the world. So really looking at new models of doing and ways of doing. This being said, thank you everyone. Thank you Michelangelo, Basque Culinary Center and the Griffin Foods that supported us and everyone that came in as a delegate to contribute to this really important conversation. So really grateful, and we're sorry about the delay. Thanks for bearing with us. Have a wonderful evening or afternoon for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicola.
Thank you, everyone. It was great.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
You.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Hello. Last faces. Hi, Andy. I saw you live yesterday still.
Yeah, it was nice. Next time in the jungle of Brazil.
Yes, please. I can't wait for hosting everyone.
Okay.
Oi, Luciana.
Oh, I had a panic in the moment. Michelangelo, never do that to me again, ever.
Okay,
and I had my screen frozen and I couldn't read any notes or anything, and it was so quick immediately that I was next time I'm going to be into the Zen mode, have possibility to look at my notes at least, you know. You do next time that to the ones who are used to do that, you know, not to the beginners. It was a fantastic meeting, guys. It was, I mean, congratulations. What you did here was big, was much bigger than you think, really. I think I saw a lot of different kind of gatherings and meetings and congresses, but very little of them have so many concrete outcomes. I mean, you managed to do a kind of an organization here that is deserve a big applause, really. I mean, I don't know how you manage that. I know I would never manage to do anything like that, and I